Hello, I'm your host, Alexis Roble, and on this podcast, my goal is to provide you with information, tools, and resources that empower you to reach your highest potential. I'll interview fascinating and insightful guests and share pieces of my own journey as well. This is the Built for Strength podcast. All right, so for those that don't know who you are, just tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, anything else you may want the audience to know.
Yeah, so my name is Dom Fusco. I am a 24-year-old health and wellness creator, entrepreneur, and I like to call myself a facilitator. I am on a mission to inspire and empower 100 million people to become the healthiest, happiest, most fulfilled version of themselves. And everything that I do reflects that and is aligned with my mission. So I'm the co-founder of a health and wellness tech app called Upspace, which is a community building platform centered around health, happiness, and love. I run events here in Austin through a company that we started called Full Circle Events, where we build community. We do health and wellness focused events. Really, we're trying to make health the center of people's social lives. So being able to put on really cool community events down here, run clubs, ultimate frisbee, group workouts, breathworks, a lot of really cool stuff. And then I create content online. I have the Pure Ambition podcast flag behind me back there. I've been doing for almost 4 years now. So I am just a very mission driven person who wants to make as much of an impact as I possibly can on everybody that I meet and leave this world better than I found it. So that's a little bit about me and what I do now. How I got here is a whole nother story, but that is what I do on a day to day.
Yeah, totally. Why did you initially move to Austin?
I had visited a few times, and after the third time, I had stayed for 2 weeks and was like, you know what? The next time I come here, I'm moving here. So that was in March of 2023. And then I ended up moving down here at the end of June 2023. And it was just the people, the community, the environment, the opportunity for growth that I saw, and just the lifestyle that people were living here. It was like I felt like I got FOMO when I was living in Pennsylvania because all my
Yeah.
friends were, I was like, all my homies are down here just living it up and, creating cool stuff and just living these incredible lives. And I wanted to be a part of that. In my heart, I knew that this was the place that I was meant to be. And I'm so grateful to be here, so blessed for this crazy journey. But I love it here. I'm so blessed. But yeah, that's why I decided to make the move.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, what dreams did you have as far as your career and all of that?
Ooh, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. I didn't really know what sport I wanted to be in. I loved basketball, football, baseball. Those were my three. And then I swam because my mom made me, but secretly I liked it. But I never wanted to be a professional swimmer. But I could have gone. I wouldn't have minded going pro in the other three. Um, I used to play like wiffle ball by myself. I would like have these like full on like games, and I would literally just be playing by myself. Like don't ask me how that worked. But just hours shooting basketball and um, practicing my pitching up against the fence and going to the batting cages, hitting off the tee. Like I was obsessed. Like I love sports. I used to be able to. I used to know like every single MLB team's like starting nine, their whole pitching
Wow.
rotation. Like I was a nerd. Like I was a nerd when it came to sports. My mom will tell you, I would wake up and I would watch Sports Center like 2 times all the way through, before anybody in my house even got up. I was just
That's
obsessed. Like
hilarious.
I loved it. So I wanted to work in sports growing up. I didn't know if I wanted to be I didn't know if I wanted to be a broadcaster. I didn't know if I wanted to, or I wanted to play. But after that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a coach or maybe I'll be a broadcaster. I'll do something in sports. Um, didn't end up that way. I ended up playing football in college, but the buck stopped there. But I was very grateful for that journey and that opportunity. And that was my main goal and my main ambition. I was never like, oh, I want to be an astronaut or I'm going to be a firefighter or I'm going to be a businessman. I was like, no, I'm going I'm gonna be a professional sports player. I wish a lot of kids, I think, uh, believe that they can do.
Yeah.
But that was my main ambition as a kid.
Yeah. How has your vision for your career evolved over the years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I It's so funny. Like I don't even really think of what I do as a career. I kind of just
Mm.
think of it as like my life,
Yeah.
And we spend the majority of our time in our career or our profession or in our work. Like I've been standing at this standing desk since it's 3:30 right now. I've been standing here since 6:30 this morning, just doing
Yeah.
work and being on calls and things like that. And so it's not always super glamorous, like the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, but I more so think of it as like, okay, like today's a computer day. Like tomorrow it's not as much of a computer day. I'm going to be out filming and um doing a bunch of other stuff. But I think about it in this way. Why would I spend the majority of my life working for somebody else doing something that I don't enjoy just to earn a paycheck when at the end of the day, like I'm gonna die anyway. So I
Mm.
might, and there's never been a better time in human history to write your own story, create your own reality, make money doing something you enjoy. I'm not saying it's easy because it's certainly not. It
Right.
takes
Yeah.
a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of failure, a lot of tears, a lot of sweat, a lot of blood, a lot of all of it. Like it's all this entrepreneur stuff you hear, it's all true, all of it.
Hmm.
But it's worth every second of it because when I look at my life, I don't want to look back on it with any regrets or ask myself, what if? I want to be I want to be like watching the film of my life or reading the book of my life at the end of it, just like so happy and fulfilled and reflecting on all the cool things I got to do, the amazing people I got to meet, the positive impact that I left on this world. And that's the way I look at it is like, I know a lot of people who just go through the motions in their day-to-day life. And it's like, well, you're say you're awake for 16 hours and you're at work for 8 of those and you're commuting to work for like another one of those and
Hmm.
you're getting ready for work for another like hour of those. Like so much of people's lives is just occupied by their job. And it's like,
Hmm.
why wouldn't you spend it doing something you enjoy rather than doing what your parents told you should do or what society tells you should do? Because
Hmm.
you're never going to be fulfilled if you're living for somebody else's dream.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And I think that the system is sort of set up that way where we start going to school when we're little. We go to school from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and we come home and we do our schoolwork. And then once we're done with school, we go to college and then we get a job and we work from 9 to 5. Like this is the way the system's set up, but it doesn't have to be that way. We don't
Hmm.
have to hate our job and hate our life and like spend all of this time doing something that isn't fulfilling. There are ways and there are pathways to find something that works for you and find something that is meaningful to you in your life.
100%. 100%. And I think it just takes time for people to get like unplug, to just
Mm.
not think about what other people are doing. They to truly, genuinely think about what am I interested in? What could I see myself doing for the rest of my life? And you might have no idea. Like when I started, I was like trying to sell buy and sell sneakers. I was trying to like flip uh like cell phones and I was driving Instacart and DoorDash and I was shoveling driveways and cutting people's grass. I was doing like literally anything
Hmm.
to but I just knew like if I just keep doing all these things, eventually I'm gonna land on something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I eventually did, but then even still, I've pivoted a lot throughout that. But it's just a matter of like leaning into your own curiosity. And for me, when I got my first taste of corporate when I was in college working an internship, I was like, no way. There's
Yeah.
no chance that I'm going to do this. And that was shortly after I had started my podcast. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to turn podcasting into a full-time thing, you know.
Hmm.
Still haven't done that.
Yeah.
But
You're not Joe
um
Rogan yet.
not Joe Rogan quite
Yeah.
yet. Maybe I'll see him around Austin and he'll give me a few pointers. But ultimately, like I love that podcasting also is not like my entire life. Like it's not my entire job because when something becomes your job, ultimately it can take the fun out of it a little bit too. So for me, I'm very blessed and grateful that I have like a multitude of things that construct my day, that construct my quote unquote like work and
Mm-hmm.
my job, so that like nothing that I do feels like it's like occupying all of my time, and that I'm solely like stuck to that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like I podcast, I create videos, I work with brands, I'm building an app, I put on events, I have all these different things. So I get to fill my cup in a lot of different areas. And it requires a level of attention to detail and prioritization and time management, scheduling, and
Mm-hmm.
all the things which I'm still learning to get better at, because truth be told, I am not the best like operator. I'm not the best like manager of things. I'm very much just like I'm just gonna move fast and break things,
Yeah.
which is good when you're, especially when you're getting started. But as you start to establish things, like you need to have structure, you need to have some sort of schedule, you need to have um days like today where I'm like, man, I want to just go out and go to the gym, or I want to run, or I want to do all these things, but I have these obligations. I will
Yeah.
get to those things, but by like staying committed to them and making progress on them, like that is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just constantly learning, but you learn as you go.
Yeah. And obviously from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like you have a typical day right now. But in that sense, what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh man. Well, yeah. So I give each day a theme, and that has really helped me versus like first half of the day I am doing this, and then the middle of the day I'm doing this, and then the back end of the day I'm doing this. It's like I kind of have a focus for each day. Like Monday for me is that is like a lot of calls, that is a lot of admin work. It's a lot of boring computer work that I don't really want to do, but it sets the week up for success.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, I have I have a block in the morning where, first thing I do every morning is I get up and I drink water with electrolytes, and I go for a ruck with my weighted vest on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's where I'll say my daily prayers. I'll listen to the Bible in a year. And that's just like the first hour of my day. Come back, I'll make a cup of cacao, and I'll jump into whatever I'm doing for that day. So that's like the first hour 15 minutes of my day. After that, I usually take like 10-15 minutes to just connect with my community on
Mm-hmm.
Upspace app. So I'm asking people questions, I'm answering questions, I'm messaging people. I'll just take 15 minutes to do that. And then I'll take 15 minutes to do some creative work just to get my brain turned on for the day. So today I was on my iPad, and I was just like writing out different hooks
Mm.
for videos. As I'm trying to right now, I'm trying to become a better storyteller
Mm.
through my content. So one of those things is like, how do you capture people's attention? So for like 15 minutes, I'm just like writing out um different hooks, different content ideas, and just turning my creative side of my brain on for a while. And then I did some more boring stuff. I did a bunch of like organizing of my email,
Mm.
putting everything into folders, and setting up a new Slack channel for my editor and my virtual assistant who helps me out. And um, meanwhile, like going back and forth with my team on like a project that we're working on. This is all like early in the morning, and then I edited a podcast for a while. And then I had calls from 10 a.m. till like now. That is what like a typical like computer day
Mm-hmm.
will look like for me. But typically, what I like to do is I like to have a bigger block of whatever I'm doing in the morning, like 3-4 hours of like good deep work, and then I like to go to the gym around like mid morning, around lunchtime, and then I'll get into more of the calls and the things like that, filming later in the day. So I like to have that breakup of, I'm not like, I don't like to get up and like do a hard workout first thing in the morning. And then because then I'll just work like all day. I'll just be on my computer all day. I'll and then I'll just go insane. But like today, it was like,
Yeah.
all right, I got that little bit of movement in the morning, which I always do. I always get that like 30 to 40 minute walk in, and then usually around lunchtime, I'll go to the gym. Today, I'm gonna go after we get off this call.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what, like again, it's different, but for the most part, it's always broken up into like two bigger chunks of work. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. And then I like to have what I call leftovers, like later in the evening. So if there's things that I need to get to, or it's like somebody texts me, hey, can you make an intro to this person? Or I got to
Yeah.
respond to these emails or DMs or um, this brand, whatever else. I put them in the leftovers block. So it's like I don't have to worry about getting back to them right now because I know
Hmm.
that I'm going to get to it later.
Yeah. So your podcast is called the Pure Ambition Podcast. How did you start that? When did you start that? What was your initial vision for the podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast started, it was called Days with Dom,
Oh,
which
okay.
is pretty funny. Yeah, that was back when I was in college. I didn't know what it was going to be called, but I had no idea for a name, but I it was my excuse to just there that was my excuse of like why I wasn't starting was I didn't have a
Hmm.
name. And so when I finally came to Days with Dom, all right, like I know this isn't going to be a forever name, but it's something for right now. So I went on to Canva, created the graphic real quick, and applied on Anchor and threw it up there, and
Hmm.
submitted my RSS feed to Apple, got approved for that, and you recorded one solo episode, just saying like, hey, I'm gonna go for this, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do it. Um, but then ultimately, after a year of doing it, a year straight of doing the podcast, so like, 50 episodes or so, I was like, you know what? I think now's the time to pause and think about like rebranding. So I was out shoveling, listening to a Joe Rogan podcast with Kevin Hart, and he was like, Joe Rogan was like, Kev, man, like, how do you do what you do? You do all these things, and you've got your family, and you've got your businesses, and you've got acting, and all these things. How do you do it? And he's
Hmm.
like, I just have this relentless ambition. And I was like, yo, I love that word, ambition. I don't know why. It's just like, it's not like I never heard the word before, but like
Yeah.
it just struck a chord with me there. And then I was like, I like that. I was like, I'm gonna sit with that. And then I think I was like out on a run or something a couple days later, and like the idea just came to me. It was like pure ambition. Everybody has their own unique pursuit, their own definition of ambition, and what they're passionate about. So
Hmm.
I just put two and two together, and I was like, that's it. And so reached out to a friend. He started helping me create the graphics, and what you see now with Pure Ambition is different than what I had beforehand with all the graphics. So like again, we're made in Canva,
Hmm.
but yeah, so now like Pure Ambition, everybody has their own definition of it. It's one of the questions that I ask. It's a question that I asked every guest at the end. It's like, when you hear those words, what do they mean to you, and how do they apply to your daily life?
Hmm.
Um, so I just think it's cool. Like everybody has their own ambitions, their own pursuits, their own goals, their own dreams, their own passions, but they're purely unique to them. So that's how I paired the two together.
Yeah. How do you pick guests for your podcast and how do you come up with ideas for the solo episodes that you do? Is there any sort of structure to that?
There's no real structure, other than I think about is what this person is like an expert in going to resonate with my audience. And I
Mm.
think it's just once you're able to understand the person who you're trying to reach, the person that you're listening to, it makes it a little bit easier because I have people a lot now ask me like, hey, I would love to come on your podcast, or I represent this person for your podcast. And I say no a lot
Hmm.
because if it's somebody who wants to talk about real estate, like
Yeah,
that's
that doesn't really
that
apply.
doesn't really apply. I'm not a real estate podcast. So I usually just listen to my gut. Um,
Hmm.
and there's no real structure to it. They don't need to like have a certain amount of followers or have sold X amount of businesses or written X amount of books. Like I don't
Yeah.
care about that stuff. It's more so just like a gut feeling of like, yeah, I think this would resonate with my audience or this wouldn't. And then in terms of like asking questions or topics, like I'll do a little bit of research, but I don't go into it with like a question sheet or like a topics list or anything like that. I really just surrender to the present moment
Hmm.
and let the conversation flow as it will, and just really lean into like what I'm actually curious about. Like I'll do all this research, I'll write up a bunch of questions or things that I'm interested, and then I'll delete all of it.
Yeah.
So that way I just go into it clear-headed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what does your fitness background look like? Because that was when you started initially content creating, you had a lot of people following you for your fitness content. You recently kind of branched out from that, but what does your fitness background look like, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I mentioned I played college football.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like working out. I started lifting weights when I was in eighth grade, and I just immediately fell in love with it. Like I loved that I could see myself and feel myself getting stronger. I loved just the feeling of getting a good lift in. It was like I'd always been athletic. I'd always played sports, but like I loved that, I could get stronger and I was getting faster and ultimately like I was becoming a better player.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, my mom's a physical therapist, massage therapist, craniosacral fascial therapist. Like she's all the kinds of PTs. She
Yeah.
does everything. She's superwoman. So I was always like kind of around it, but I never really got into like wellness or fitness until I was a junior in college, and that was when I was going through a bunch of injuries. Like I tore my ACL, I had a herniated disc in my back, and I was just determined to get back to being healthy and come back better than I was before. So led me
Mm-hmm.
down the rabbit hole of reading a lot of books, watching podcasts, watching YouTube videos, asking my coaches, and just doing a lot of self-study, and being very just proactive about trying to learn as much as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And then when COVID happened, I was a junior in college, like I said, and I was dealing with a back injury. And once I finally I went down these rabbit holes of I was having these conversations on the podcast with people in the health and wellness space, and I was like, man, I'm asking them questions out of sheer curiosity. I'm applying it to my life, and I'm starting to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that when I when my physical health was thriving, like all other areas of my life were thriving as well. So it was like that top of the fountain that like pours into all the other ones.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I see what this did for me. I want to give back and I want other people to feel as good as I do right now. And that was when I decided to take a semester off from college, get my personal training and nutrition coaching certifications and start my own little business doing
Mm-hmm.
that. And ever since then, like I've just been obsessed with becoming the happiest, healthiest version of myself, like seeing what my body is truly capable of, what my mind is capable of, and using my body as like a vessel to go, explore the world and um, just do all these like go see all these incredible places, experience all these incredible things. And so now it's like I'm always listening to a podcast. I'm always having conversations with my
Mm-hmm.
friends about fitness and wellness and health and all the things. But that's where my background kind of stems from.
Yeah. So you recently suffered a cardiac arrest after testing your mile time PR, and you've shared a ton about that on your podcast and social media, but how has your training changed since that experience?
Yeah, crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
It's like
Insane.
it's so wild. Even to this day, like I gotta go back to the doctor tomorrow. They still haven't figured out what happened. They still,
Mm-hmm.
five months later, they still haven't found out why, which is 5, 6 months later. So crazy. I was running on the track that day. You hit it on the head right there. I
Mm-hmm.
was timing my mile. And granted, I don't remember any of this, but I went out to ran the mile, ran a 5:15,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember any of it. And after the mile was over, I kind of like moseyed over to the end of the track and was trying to catch my breath and bring my heart rate down and I couldn't. And after like 5-ish minutes or so, um, I actually fainted on the track and my friends ran over and there was a firefighter there by the grace of God who started doing CPR on me. My friend called the ambulance. I actually popped back up like relatively quick. Like, so I went down and then I actually popped back up and I was like
Yeah.
coherent. I was talking, which is crazy. Like, again, I don't remember any of this. And I was telling them, like, yo, don't call the ambulance. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. No worries. And thank God they didn't listen to me because then I went down again.
Yeah.
This time I lost my pulse. I had a seizure. I was convulsing and my whole entire body went purple and I was flatline dead for 90 seconds. and the ambulance came. They put me on the ventilator, got me in the ICU, and I was in the ICU for 24 hours until I was finally able to breathe under my own power. They took me off the ventilator, or they woke me up. I don't remember really anything. I was that whole day is very blurry, the day that I woke
Yeah.
up, but transported me to another hospital, where I had a ton of tests and procedures and everything done, where I was in the hospital for a week, and they released me because they couldn't find anything. They couldn't figure out what happened.
Mhm.
So to this day, I still don't have an answer as to what caused it or triggered it. Maybe I'll get some answers tomorrow. I don't know. But from there, like, it's just completely changed my outlook and perspective on life. And
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful for this body that I have, for this life that I've been given, for an able mind, an able body. And the fact that I don't have any brain damage is such a blessing in and of itself. Like,
Yeah.
one in only 10% of people who suffer a cardiac arrest survive. And of that 10% who survive, a high percentage of those people end up with some sort of, you know, brain injury.
Mhm.
And I didn't have anything.
Wow.
So I'm so blessed. It doesn't make any sense. It gives me chills literally thinking about it.
Mhm.
And I know that there's a reason why I'm still here. And I want to make as much of an impact as I possibly can, with the
Mhm.
time that I am lucky enough to have.
Yeah, definitely. So you post about your nutrition practices and you've had podcast guests that specialize in that area. What are your personal nutrition practices and how did you find what works for you? And has that changed over the years?
Yeah, so my nutrition practices. So I took a nutrition coaching course, a certification, and I've done a
Hmm.
lot of self-study. It's nutrition something I've been very interested in, over the past couple of years, because I look at like what it's done for me, and I turned 25 next week. I look younger at 25 than I did when I was 18. Like, you see me, I had acne, I was
Yeah.
bloated. I was like, I look like I literally looked like an out of shape 25-year-old when I was 18. And now, like, I look younger and healthier and more vibrant than I did then.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with nutrition. And granted, I have the principles have always stayed the same, and that is just like, eat whole foods. Like, that
Hmm.
is the main priority. Like, eliminate processed foods, eat as many whole foods as possible. I've always fueled for performance, not aesthetics. Like, I had somebody reach out to me and was like, "How do you balance?" Like, I'm an athlete and I'm trying to balance like performing well with also like maintaining a good physique. And I was like, if you train for a good physique, your performance is going to absolutely suffer. So for
Yeah.
me, it's all about performing, not just like I'm performing in a workout, but like performing in my day to day. Like,
Hmm.
otherwise, like, I've been standing at this freaking desk for since 6:30 this morning.
Yeah.
How have I been able to like not have a crash? It's because, one, I'm working on things that I really enjoy, and two is because I'm fueling my body with what it needs to give me the energy to keep going and not
Hmm.
have brain fog and things like that. So I right now I'm eating more carbs. I'm coming off of, like, over the past couple of months, I've been going like very low carb, high
Hmm.
fat, high protein. Um, which was good. I felt very mentally clear on it, but I was also like, I was eating like two huge meals a day. Um, but I just got my blood work done and saw that like my liver enzymes were pretty high. So my liver was under some stress. So what I'm doing is I'm not intermittent fasting anymore, which is what
Hmm.
I was doing. And I'm eating like 3 meals a day with a snack thrown in there, maybe a protein shake. But I'm prioritizing protein at every meal,
Hmm.
trying to get around 1 gram per pound of body weight. I don't eat as many vegetables as I used to, just because
Yeah.
they're relatively hard on my gut. I will still eat like squash and zucchini and um, avocado and um, some peppers and onions and things like that here and there, but
Hmm.
arugula. But for the most part, like, I just try to eat the highest quality things I can possible, like organic fruit, pasture raised chicken and eggs and grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And I just try to fuel for a majority of my carbs around workouts. I'm having more of them now.
Hmm.
Little less fat, little more carbs just to help with cortisol levels. But overall, it's just like try to eat as many one ingredient foods as you can. You know,
Yeah.
if there's no nutrition label, uh, that's the best option.
Hmm.
And that's really it. You know, it's very simple when you think about it, but there's so
Hmm.
much. There's you can go down a million different rabbit holes and you ask 10 different people what the best diet is and you'll get 10 different
Yeah.
answers. It's been a lot of trial and error for me, but the majority of my diet is um, high quality animal products,
Hmm.
organic fruits and veggies, and then things like, raw dairy and honey and just other things that are from nature.
Hmm. Out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on something like the carnivore diet?
So I think I think it can work. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's something I've never personally done like a straight carnivore diet, but I know a lot of people who have had a lot of success on it.
Yeah.
Um, I think it can be really good for like certain periods of time. Like I have
Hmm.
friends who do like seasonal carnivore, they call it. So like we're in like the winter. If you think about our ancestors, like back in the day, like they didn't have an abundance of like blueberries and bananas and honey
Yeah.
in January, especially if they lived in like a northern climate. You know, they were feeding off of like animal products, eating very high
Hmm.
fat, high protein diets that were giving them energy, sustained energy. But I think I think it is a very great tool that you could use. I don't think it's the smartest thing to do if you're like an athlete
Hmm.
or if you're trying to fuel performance, but for like optimal health and longevity, I think it's something that you can turn to seasonally, but I don't think it's something that is sustainable forever.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's something that works for certain people and something that doesn't work for a lot of people. Because I've done it personally for it was like a year and a half or 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's hard to remember because I honestly don't feel that much different
Mm.
doing my normal diet, which is like way not carnivore, compared to how I felt doing carnivore. But yeah, I know people that have done it for years and some people have done it for decades. So I think it works for some people in certain situations. But yeah, I was just curious as to your thoughts. All right. So I have a few more questions before we finish up. And the one of the last ones is what does success look like to you?
Good question. Success to me looks like pursuing whatever is on your heart and detaching from needing to know the outcome
Mm,
of it. For me, I'm just chasing what I love with no end goal. You know, like
yeah.
yeah, I say my goal is to inspire and empower 100 million people, but am I ever going to truly be able to track that number? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I am so in love with what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. Again, there's things that I don't want to do, but my like the things that I do get to do, like create videos and connect with people and put on events and things like that, are so meaningful and fulfilling to me. It's just like
Hmm.
success to me means like I am solely focused on just doing what I love every single day and not thinking about, a dollar amount that I'm trying to hit or, the amount of square footage in my house or the amount of vacations I'm going on each year. It's like I don't
Yeah.
care about any of that stuff. Success to me is just being in complete control over my life and how I get to spend my time.
Mm. Yeah. All right. So this is one question that I ask all my guests at the end of each episode, and that is who is someone that inspires you and why?
Ma Dukes, my mom is my favorite person in the world, the biggest inspiration to me. She inspires me so much just through her strength, through her resilience,
Hmm.
seeing her, you know, go back to school, change careers at age 47 and start her own business and
Wow.
is just so inspiring to me. You know, how she raised 4 kids and just always gave us what we needed, no matter what, and taught us independence and brought us up with strong faith. And just, I see the way that she heals people and how she just shines a light and radiates whatever room that she's in. And
Mhm.
you can't find a person that'll say a bad thing about her. So
Yeah.
she inspires me and the impact that she leaves on others. And that's what I try to do as well.
Hmm. Yeah. I always love hearing people's answer to that question. And it's never been someone that has 3 million followers on Instagram. It's always someone that has impacted you the most. And so I think that really just magnifies the idea that it doesn't matter how many people that know your name. It matters who you've impacted and who you've had a positive and deep and meaningful impact on.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So just share where people can find you and follow along with your journey.
Yeah. So if people want to connect with me, it is Instagram is probably the best way to connect.
Mhm.
It's just at my name, Dominic Fusco, Pure Ambition Podcast on Spotify, Apple,
Great
YouTube.
podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And those are probably the best ways to connect with me. If you search my name, you'll probably get a bunch of articles about me almost dying, but
Yeah.
you can also find my social media channels there. But
Cool.
yeah, it's probably the best way to connect.
Awesome. I'll link that all in the description. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Built for Strength podcast. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. You can follow me on Instagram at Alexis J. Roble. If you want to be on the podcast, I have an inquiry form in the description for you to fill out. And if you have any more questions or suggestions, you can email me, builtforstrengthpodcast@gmail.com. See you guys next week.